I readily admitted, normally on Thursdays, what we do, Nico and I, is, we kind of do something on tape and we roll it around pretty quick. But now that I am scaring people and becoming more technologically advanced, when I reached out to Nico today, I said, hey, do you want to go ahead and do it live? And, do it since I'm learning StreamYard. You want to go ahead and do it live? Nico was like, sure. So it is 2:30 out on the West Coast, out on the Pacific time zone. And after a long national nightmare, this is what it looks like to have all of us on video. Nico, my friend, third cup of coffee, I imagine. Good to see you.
Yes, sir. Well, actually, I just had it. So right now I'm just drinking some 0-calorie flavored water, locally handled here in the Pacific Northwest.
There you go. All right. See, there you go. All right. I'm down with that. I'm down with OPP, as the kids say. I'm down with it. So normally what we do for a half an hour is we go back and forth and we kind of sit there and let folks know what's on our minds when it comes to the week that was and the week that will be. You want to go ahead and start with LAFC? Just go ahead and get started. Just get into LAFC here a little bit and see what's going on, because last night in Houston probably got their win of the year, knocking off LAFC, but there are other issues that you and I have been looking at, and this is nothing new to us. Houston got the Duke, and what are people saying now in your sphere, sir, about LAFC?
Well, it's the trending topic. It is something that, like you said, we've been talking about for a little bit, and, sending a huge hello to all your audience and anybody watching. Always excited to be here with you, John. But listen, we heard the narratives. Or at least I think we both criticized the fact that it was being overhyped. Absolutely everything about a team that in all reality was already top of the table, was already dominating the league, had a cohesive unit, had a solid defense, and you start moving your most consistent or one of your most consistent center backs. You interrupt that continuity, the chemistry that you had back there with Murillo. You are trying to get Segura, a player with less than, 400 minutes this season, who's coming up an injury, who's not wasn't a regular player. And your other option is your great big signing, a 30-year-old Italian center back whose name everyone knows, but who hasn't really been as good as some people expected, for one, and hasn't lived up to the hype. Precisely. Yesterday was a perfect example of that. Out of position, lack of communication. Quite honestly, Houston could have had 3 because Dorsey was close to scoring all on his own, taking on the entire back line of the LAFC, and he just wasn't able to finish, but he was there. And the worst part about that is that he does it again at the end of the game, and he puts one away in the corner and makes you look silly. So to conclude, all these new signings, everything that you've been doing, adjusting what does not need to be adjusted, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, applies completely to this equation. And right now you have a team that's lost some confidence, that maybe starting to wake up and realize that you cannot win in paper, that this ain't FIFA, and you need to get a team together, a collective unit that plays as a team in order to win. And the fact that when you bring all these players, every single team in the league is going to come at you with a knife in their teeth. You got a big old target on your back, and you got to realize that, and you got to play to the occasion. That has not been LAFC in the last 3 games.
Everybody who has come up with them, let's look at those last 3. We talked about last night, the 2-1 loss, 4-1 loss at Q2, which got completely out of control at points. And then we can get into that as well as a part of seemingly our weekly conversation that we have. And then San Jose before that. You've got 3 teams in a row. You mentioned the knife between the teeth. They're coming at them with garra, and LAFC has come up on the short end of the stick in all of this. There's something to be said, I would think, for standing pat. maybe building later. No,
Yep.
it's like, dude, we're rolling. Why do you want to sit there and go, yeah, oh, we can do this, looking at the shiny objects? Like, you walk into the store, you've walked into Toys R Us, and you're getting ready for Christmas, man. It's like, ooh, look at the PS5. Ooh, look at this, and you don't even get to the back of the store. You're like the dude that is shopping up front. You're like, ooh, I'm gonna look at all these specials that I got here. Maybe I can figure stuff out. That's what this looks like to me. This looks like somebody that just walked into their favorite store in the mall and just decided to shop up front and check out early and try to beat everybody else back to the car into the parking spot, when instead, if you had taken your time, gone into shopping, gone maybe in the back of aisle 6 and sat there and said, hey, you know what? This looks like a great gift for somebody. You've shopped at the front of the store. You're out the door. You're heading back into traffic, and there's problems here, man.
Yeah, and you never realized that your wife had done some shopping of her own, and you had all the same stuff in the trunk, and now you're trying to figure out what to do with it. So you got bills coming up, and now you're in the red without needing to be. And that's what I see from this LAFC team. They got a whole bunch of unnecessary acquisitions, big names that were good at some point. But look, I don't want to be that guy that is just keying down on one player, but Gareth Bale hasn't looked good, man. And all the excuses that you hear out there about he's not fit is no more than an excuse. I don't care who you are. You should be ready to give me 45 minutes, 30 minutes of great play, and we haven't seen that consistently from Gareth Bale. Yesterday, had the opportunity to become the man and make a difference, score a goal, takes way too long, no lack of field awareness, hits off a little shot, and great response by, of course, the Dynamo defense to stop that goal from going in. But someone who has come with all these expectations should be able to put that away. So I don't want to hear any more of the excuses. And believe me that when I said what I said, and I put it on Twitter constantly, people were coming at me. Oh, you're crazy. You're a hater. This team is amazing. Best you've ever seen. The loss against San Jose doesn't mean nothing. Oh, this loss against Austin doesn't mean anything. Watch out. Here we are now, couple of games in. And even I thought the Baunga substitution yesterday was forced. And in that second goal, he's one of the players that is giving you no defending. He just came in, and he's not pressing to the ball carrier. And that lack of disconnection or maybe lack of urgency happens when you don't have a unit. When I've been breaking my back all season to get this team to the top of the table, I'm going to take that extra mile. I'm going to take that extra step to get onto the defender. That didn't happen yesterday, and it's happening a lot. A lot of shifting in the fullback position, a lot of shifting in the center back position. It's just not looking good. You got to fix it. Once again, I'm not saying this team is over, and no, I'm just saying that everything that we heard that you were hearing is not as good as it sounded. And now my prediction was that Philadelphia was going to take the Shield. They are on their way to do it. And in all honesty, to me, they are the better team. They are a strong unit, good defending, experienced MLS players, dynamic attackers. They're on a row, and they have a very good duo with Gazdag and Ura. So watch out for Philadelphia. Everybody's talking over here about LAFC, maybe even Austin. Nobody's watching Philly when they're outscoring teams, and you're saying, well, it was just DC United. But now they do it against a very good Colorado team, so watch out.
And we'll get into Philly philosophically in the second half of the conversation here. As you have taken your sip of dihydrogen oxide and you're ready to go, a little H2O back in the system. Do we want to talk about what happened against the Purple team in Central Florida?
Absolutely. I don't want to, but I think I have to. It is my duty to you. It is my duty to those fans at soccer down here. It is everything that people want to hear me say, I will. Yes, it's time to panic. It's been time to panic. The probabilities of this team to make it to the playoffs went from hard to almost impossible. However, this team has earned the benefit of the doubt. The resiliency of this group in general does not allow me to completely dismiss the fact that they can get to the playoffs. 4 out of the last 6 games are going to be at home. 3 of those 6 are going to be against subpar teams that are at the bottom of the Western Conference. But going into this game, it was hard to watch. It was gut-wrenching. It was a moral loss for this team, along with just the points lost. It is just getting that feeling that you were battling, that you saved the PK, that you were up 2-0, and you were unable to manage the game, and you come off with a loss. So all of that gotta hurt the group. Haven't talked to the guys. They have the day off today. I believe tomorrow as well. They won't be back in training until Saturday. But we're going to really see what this group is made out of to get out of a really bad mental state after that loss.
And when you look at how things are currently in the West, we've talked about Austin. Disciplinary committee has come out with a couple of things in their Thursday afternoon news dump. And as you and I are discussing it happened about 40 minutes ago. So Chiellini was fined, guilty of violating the policy regarding entering the field of play during a confrontation in 38th minute against Austin. He's been fined an undisclosed amount for the violation. Maxi Urruti has been found guilty of simulation for embellishment in the 90th minute of the same match, fined an undisclosed amount for the violation. Austin and LAFC have been fined for violation of the mass confrontation policy during the 38th minute of their match. Austin, as well as head coach Josh Wolf, have been fined an undisclosed amount for the club's second violation this year. Steve Cherundolo fined an undisclosed amount for the club's 4th violation this year. Due to the roles in mass confrontation, Ruben Gabrielson, Diogo Palacios, Sebastian Mendez, Cristiano Rongo have been fined an undisclosed amount for inciting and or escalating a mass confrontation. Michael Barrios found guilty of simulation or embellishment. Ismail Kone has been fined for guilty of failure to leave in a timely manner. Pat Noonan has been fined an undisclosed amount for his comments regarding the officiating following Cincinnati's match against Columbus Crew on August 27. Comments are in violation of the league's public criticism policy. And I actually saved this. This is the edited version of our friend Pat Noonan from what happened. Once again, courtesy of FC Cincinnati.
People are very interested.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
Columbus goal.
Yeah,
Do you have an opinion? Obviously, a lot happened.
they're interested because it's clear. That's why they're interested, is because this has happened to a point now where it's an embarrassment in our league. It's not just us. I will continue to say that. But it is a huge problem that guys that put in that much continue to get punished by just really, really poor officiating across the board. And the reasons you get for, the offside goal, the checkpoint's different than what they see in Atlanta. How can the checkpoint be different? How do you not have that view? Or how can you not just look at it and say, I should check this? This is something that doesn't look right. But again, that's the norm.
People are very interested.
All right, so there's your abbreviated. That's 50 seconds of a full 2.5 minute, and we got the bleep provided for us.
Very nice.
The unedited version does not have the bleep, and Pat Noonan gets fined the undisclosed amount for that. Then there were, after this, and I feel like I'm going all over the place now, but that's the way our segment goes. When Noonan said what he said, then there were national folks who were like, no, it's not a systemic problem. It's not as serious. That to me was disappointing to hear because of what we have been talking about consistently. We've talked about it on the morning show. We've talked about it, you and I, about where if this league wants to continue to grow in the international scale, you cannot continue to have managers discuss this way. You can't have guys like us continue to discuss it this way. And, yes, I can sit there and we'll talk about Philly and we'll put Philly to the side because that's a part of their DNA. But Houston and LAFC, LAFC and Austin, where somebody gets checked into the ad boards, you get a mass confrontation, and then you come back with a Thursday news dump and these kinds of things. And the Houston broadcast crew last night said, like, the guy was great for the first 70 or 75 and then lost control for the final 15. And you can't do that in a game that's that hot. Is it, in your mind, is it systemic? How does it get addressed? And I will once again, we had folks on the morning show, and that's the beauty of the Twitch pitch, is that we want to have these kind of conversations. They didn't want necessarily the conversation to continue to be discussing officiating. And, like I said, with the Atlanta-Philly game, we can do that in just a sec. But I think we have to have these conversations so it doesn't get forgotten that there are issues that have to be addressed.
Yeah, and it is systematic. We've talked about it, but it is about, it can no longer be allowed. Okay, you had a couple of mistakes. All right, that was uncalled for. Oh, okay, maybe that one's not so good. But now officiating has been abysmal. VAR or not, just making a judgment call at all. I mean, that alone is being just neglected by a lot of these guys. They're just not doing what they're supposed to be doing, man. Look, Seattle has been affected in 4 PKs in the last 3 games. 2 of those, the last 2 at least, to me were embarrassing, man. It was that PK at Portland, absolutely not a PK. They check it out. They go to VAR. They call it. The handball in Arriaga also, I do not agree with. And then the Cincinnati one, where we go to our old friend right here, calling it how it is. He was expecting that fine. He'll pay it happily as long as that gets out there. And that will be me. I need my guys to know that I got their back, that they were deservingly winning that game, and they were affected by that PK. I mean, by that offside call that wasn't called, that was clear and obvious, and you weren't able to bring it back. So I like it. That's what I expect from my head coach. But once again, the real issue is, how do we fix it? And you need to at least give the people some sort of illusion that you're doing something about it.
Yeah.
Because have you heard of anything? Because I haven't heard any type of disciplinary actions against anybody, any massive retraining or explanation. I mean, this whole thing about, I'm just going to explain my oopsie and what I did wrong is just not cutting it. You have to do more than that. You can't just explain to me, hey, sorry, guys, that was the wrong call. You guys were all right. That's not enough. You have to do something about it.
And getting into the match last night with Atlanta and Philadelphia, you had some instances early where, and like I said, we have discussed hell is real. We've discussed LA and Austin. We've discussed LA and Houston. So getting to what we were discussing a bit on the morning show, you had an early collision with Andre Blake outside the 18, plowing into Luis Araujo. Then you have a moment where Alejandro Bedoya basically sweeps his right leg, contacts Araujo in the chin with the point of his boot, and Bedoya gets a yellow. I think it should have been a lot worse. And it was mentioned on the broadcast itself that Nate Bacady and Mo Adu on Fox saw cleat marks on Araujo's, on the underside of his chin for stuff like this. And, then after the match, and let me get the wording. And I know that, I don't know if you've necessarily seen the Bedoya play, but you look at Jonathan Tannenwald was the reporter on scene to ask for the official response. And that's another thing having to do with transparency. I think that we need to be far more transparent when it comes to officials and all of their discussions, because if you don't phrase the question appropriately, they can come up with whatever response they want. They can dance around the issue, and then you don't get to ask a follow-up question. That, for me, is just as important, to ask a follow-up, but you don't get to ask a follow-up most of the time in these situations. And once again, if you ask the question incorrectly, or if you don't get one word right, they can dance around, the officiating crew can dance around whatever it is they think they can say. And that's their answer. You get no second chance in something like this. And I would love for there to be something akin to a scrum where you can sit there and ask questions and have there be an in-depth discussion so you know what the official is thinking in this kind of a regard.
And it's the inconsistency, man. If the Pozuelo red card of a couple of games ago, which was, once again, just not paying attention. I don't care if you're not seeing the guy that's coming across from you. If you're negligent and you're unaware and disregard of the opponent's safety, and you got your cleat to the point where you got marks in someone's face, then that should be a red card. Mm-hmm. And El Brujo, look, he's not ill intent, but he's going to push the limit. He's a lot like Chara. He's going to be a guy that's going to be right at that line. And if you allow that to happen and just give him a yellow, then you're not really doing anything about protecting the players. We've talked about goalkeepers. We've talked about all of these things, but that's a situation where a laceration to the face or something like that, it should be non-allowed. So once again, it's about how much slowly the refereeing is deteriorating around you, that he has gone from bad to worse. And there's no response from the league about what they're planning to do about it. So I'm totally with you. I think that red card would have changed a lot of the game in general. Yep. And that's when we move on to all of the rabbit holes, right? What could have happened if this was to be called correctly, right? And I'm not saying by any ways that, or like, a lot of the conversations is, well, Seattle's saying that the refereeing is why they've lost these games. No, I'm not saying that, but you have to understand that it is a circumstance that affected the game. So there's always those what ifs. So once again, it all goes back to it. I love your idea, and I think we should put that out there of just being open with the public about what's being called and the reasoning behind it, because listening afterwards or talking to the pool reporter, it just isn't enough anymore, man. If you get these guys to be accountable for that decision at that particular time, maybe they'll think about it twice, man. I mean, it's just the way it is.
37th minute. So this is the homework assignment for anybody who is either listening later, watching now, what have you. 37th minute was the contact with Bedoya's right as he's sweeping around, contacts Luis Araujo in the chin and goes down. So 37th minute, for those of you that want to go back and watch, I found the response to Jonathan Tannenwald. Quote, Bedoya, who had the opportunity to play the ball, made contact using the top of the boot into the opponent's upper chest area. There was no malice or excessive force in Bedoya's action. So chin is now upper chest?
There's a big difference, and I apologize. I was blaming Brujo on that, but yes, I mean it all goes back to the exact same thing, right? I mean it's above an area where the foot should be and where you should be looking at, because it is considered negligent. Mm-hmm. So if we're not going to do anything about these types of situations, it's going to come to the point where something will happen, and then we'll wonder why nothing got done a couple of games ago when we had a near miss and not a real problematic situation.
All right, so we got 5 minutes, and so 5 good minutes here. Let's talk the weekend, because I know, and we're probably going to have to turn the Philadelphia Union philosophy situation. That discussion might be its own 30 at some point, because of how they drive you crazy, go right up against the envelope and all that kind of thing. That Philadelphia Union discussion, they're fantastic defensively. They gave up only their 21st goal all season long last night against Atlanta United. So we'll take Philadelphia, put it in a box, put a bow on it, move it off to the side, because we got 5 minutes here to talk about the weekend that will be. Okay. And we've got, let's see, Saturday and Sunday, 5 on Saturday, and we've got 3, 6, 8 on Sunday, and then we go back into the midweek for folks to play catch-up. Cliffhanger on Saturday, Minnesota United hosting FC Dallas. They're on the minus side. Crew and Fire, Crew are on the minus side. Red Bulls Union, there you go, 7 o'clock Saturday night. Red Bulls at home are a plus 140. The Union are a plus 181. Your draw is basically a plus 250.
That's a good one. I think that's obviously going to be a very strategic, more of a game of chess type of situation. I'm wondering who's going to handle the ball in that one. Both like to be away from the ball and not hold possession. But
middle third, no one's going to want to.
But you got to give New York a lot of credit. I think Luquinhas has been fantastic. Cáceres has looked good. And Captain Morgan, man, I mean, he's as dangerous as it get in that area. He just owns the box and is just putting everything away. This is the team that when it comes to identity, they're key, they're huge on, and same goes for Philadelphia. However, just because of the results, the moment, and that cohesiveness in the attacking end, which I think is something we've never really had with the Philadelphia Union. This Gazag and Ure duo, it's been dynamic. It's been explosive. They know how to find each other. They work well off. Then you got Carranza just completely reviving his career and maybe showing you that he wasn't the problem. Maybe it was Miami. But at the end of the day, just this team is just clicking in all cylinders. You got a fantastic goalkeeper, keeps you in every game, have a great back line, you have a strong midfield, and now you're just putting teams away by the bunch, by the the 6 goal mark. I mean, come on. They have to be the team that scares you the most in MLS right now. So good for them. This is going to be a really good game to put these two teams in consideration for where they're really at, not only in the conference, but as contenders for the cup.
And they also know how to fall down at the slightest touch. But that's just me. Did I say that out loud? All right. Also on the board, Cincinnati, Charlotte, Nashville, and Austin at Geodis to go MLS After Dusk on Saturday night.
That's a good one, man. Especially with Austin come of a frustrating loss. You could tell that Josh Wolf was frustrated with the situation. He thought that he should have either equalized or won that game. And I would agree in certain points of that game. Asprilla continues to be this Swiss Army knife for Gio Savaresa, and it doesn't matter where you put him. He just works out. You know, he plays the 9. He did it well. Game before, he played, I think, everything. Right back, he played out wide. He did it all. So props to that team and to Gio for continuing to earn points. And I think they're gaining a lot of confidence. We've talked about a group that knows how to do it and that believes in the system, and they believe in that coach, man. Gio is the type of guy that he's going to look at you, fire in his eyes, and just immediately spark something in you. And this team is going to be difficult if they get to the playoffs, regardless of how they do it.
Also on the board on Sunday, a couple of different ones. You mentioned Portland. Portland's going to host Atlanta, 5:30 Eastern time, 2:30 out west. What do you think of Atlanta United heading to Portland to go up against the Timbers?
That's tough. I wouldn't want to be Atlanta needing points. And I don't really know what the field is in Atlanta. I don't know if there's any similar to Seattle where we're ready to just destroy it all and fire everyone.
There are. It is somewhat split, and we do get that on the Twitch pitch, and we also get it on Twitter, where there are folks who don't want the team to make the playoffs, and then there are those that are with taking what the team and what Gonzalo Pineda and the staff and the players are taking to heart. We're not going to quit. We're going to continue to push, all those kinds of things. So you do have folks on both sides of the equation.
Yeah, so I wouldn't want to be in that conversation. I wouldn't want to be Gonzalo going to Portland to a team that, as I said, is gaining a lot of confidence, has shown that they could do it at home, and that at the end of the day, they're more balanced, man. I love what Atlanta does in sporadic moments of the games, but just the lack of consistency and concentration is just very difficult. And I really want to see who's going to win that battle in the midfield with a Portland squad that just owns it. They just completely take over games in that particular point of the field, and that's where some of the lack of effort and the lack of, I don't want to say quality because that's not it. Atlanta has a lot of quality, but they need a little bit more fight there. So I think that's going to be a tough one for a cross-country road trip for Gonzalo and his squad.
Yeah, what Atlanta United did is they stayed in Philadelphia today. They're going to stay in Philadelphia a little bit tomorrow, then make the trek over on Friday, and then they'll be there for Saturday for acclimation, and then the match on Sunday before returning home. DC is favored at home against Colorado. Once again, that's a personification of how difficult it is to win on the road. Interesting one north of the border, and it's Toronto hosting CF Montreal. This one will be fascinating at 7:30.
That's going to be a good one, man, because Toronto is another squad that can be hard to decipher. They have so much talent and quality up top, but defensively, they're very open. They're very easy to attack. And I'm going to tell you something. Jimenez's post-game conference, where he's talking about the changes that had happened in that squad since the arrival of the Italians, gives me a little discomfort, man. He talked about, you can't really blame the forwards for goals. Now we have to just do all this dirty work to try to get certain guys open, and, Insigne and
Criscito and
Bernadeschi. No, he basically talked about how much quality Bernadeschi and Insigne had, but that they played kind of in their own level, man. If you decipher the Spanish quotes that he put in there in that post game, leads me to believe that he's not happy. And Jimenez has been a prime 9 for this squad and has given him a lot of points. I would hate to see a broken locker room in this particular point in time for a Toronto team that needs points. So I'm excited to watch this one with a Montreal team that's coming off a loss, but that it was a good game. They didn't play poorly. They were just unlucky in front of goal, and Rebels got the best of them. But in this one, they're going to have to really play out, and it's going to be interesting to watch. But I want you to look at that situation, man. If Jimenez is not happy and things don't really work out well, that can be difficult for Bob to kind of figure out.
As they're chasing that 7th and final playoff spot with that gaggle of folks that are only 3 points behind the number 7 right now. LAG is hosting Sporting Kansas City. LAG is a big favorite at Dignity Health Sports Park. Revs and NYC. Under normal circumstances, you'd sit there and say, man, that's got to be a great matchup. Both of these teams have flatlined. It has not been pretty for both of these teams. One is lost 4 of 5, but once again, when you lose Ronnie Dyla and Tati Castellanos, you kind of see how NYC is just kind of floating right now, and the Revs have not been able to find any kind of a replacement for Adam Buxa, and you see what's happening there. Goalless draw last time out with those two. Seattle and Houston, you're at home and a big favorite. What do you think?
Short rest. You're going to get no practices in. It's just one practice on Saturday. It's just going to be hard, man. I feel like this squad coming back from that type of loss, I don't really know how to gauge where they're at least as a group. But physically, they look tired. That bench looks very thin right now. And as I mentioned, when me and you first heard the news of Christian Roldan being out, when we talked about what happened in Orlando, the two components that I think were a huge factor in their loss, lack of possession and lack of tempo. JP means possession, Christian means tempo. When you don't got those two guys, man, it's very difficult to win. And if you go across the league and you take away two key components of a midfield, there's not a lot of teams that are going to be making the playoffs. So aside from it being a home game against a Houston team that has ups and downs, that I think had the best game of their season against LAFC, and that might not repeat itself, I give Seattle at least the benefit that they might be able to pull a result. But it's going to be fun. It's going to be a good one. Herrera won't be there because he didn't travel to the last game. I don't know if he'll make this trip, but it's still going to be a fun game. Seattle's going to have to be on their A game, at least defensively. Jackson Reagan has not looked up to par. I think he's lost some confidence mid-season. So there might be some adjustments made there for this Houston game.
San Jose is hosting Vancouver in MLS After Dark, and LAFC is hosting RSL. Both of them are on the minus side. LAFC's at right now, as we're talking, at a minus 238. Time for the plug. What's going on with El Rolo and W these days?
All righty. Well, we got some probably more entertaining stuff coming up this week, because tomorrow we have a media game here in Seattle that we'll be attending. We'll have a couple of our Pulso Sports members, including myself, that are going to be part of that. So you might see some entertaining photos and pictures of myself and others struggling for air at Lumen Field. So that's going to be fun. But, of course, these last 6 games for the Seattle Sounders are going to be important. We're going to be working on that. I'm looking to get a interview with a big-time player that's making a lot of noise in the league, but I won't say his name until I have it secured. But it should be fun, and I will make sure to translate and do maybe like a article in English just for everyone else, because I expect that to be a really good interview. And that's about it, man. But let me finish by saying this, man. We talked about a lot of teams around here in the Western Conference, Eastern Conference, some that are not getting as much credit as LAFC. RSL, man, very under the radar, very discreet, 3-0 win against Minnesota. Watch out. This Real Salt Lake team can really be dangerous in the playoffs when nobody's expecting it. Mm-hmm. Very balanced, extremely good in transition. I saw it firsthand here in Seattle. That was an impressive win against Minnesota. So watch out. That game this weekend between RSL and LAFC, I mean, not surprisingly for anyone here, I'm taking RSL. But, man, that team is solid. And
when Pablo Mastroeni gets into the playoffs as a 7, all bets are off, because
all bets are off.
It is one game at a time, and this could be a preview of maybe a second round matchup with if RSL gets the Duke in their first playoff matchup, then LAFC is they're still the one. If RSL is the 7, they beat Austin. Maybe, who knows? You could have.
You're right. You're absolutely right, man. That you're right on, man. But RSL is my dark horse, man. They can put some pressure on you. They can make it difficult, and before you know it, Cordova's behind your back line with the pass from Severino, and there goes the game.
Folks, Kefsi in the Twitch pitch is like, wizardry, afternoon Nikos. There was people are jacked up on the Twitch pitch about us coming on and actually showing our faces for a change, man.
No, man, well, hopefully we do this more often. Today was kind of on the run, and I hope you guys had fun. And because John always puts me in the gun, man, he does some great job, great questions. So I just try to get by. But man, I love it. I had to go at least put a hat on, get all ready to go. But yeah, man, I'm always happy to be on, and let's do it again.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Sharif, before we go, tough on us Atlanta fans. Got a hand congrats to Philly for the win. In fairness, a 3-goal difference scoreline can't really be debated. Bottom line is that Philly won. We talked about some of the other extraneous stuff at the top, but I know 2 of those have to go on Rocco. And, thought that Rocco could probably get to his right and stretch and get the one that went past him. And then obviously going out for the challenge and coming out late. And that it ends up being a slam dunk on the other side. So Kefsi says, happy to see you, meaning you, sir. And transfer window's closed, and it's almost dinner time. So that's what the vibe is here with the 2 of us here late in the afternoon. So,
thank you guys. I appreciate it. No, but tough on a young keeper, man. You kind of got to take the good with the bad when it comes to making a decision like this one. I would have thought that Gudiño would have taken the job by now, but he hasn't. So I don't know if he will this season.
And that's the element in this is that Gudiño and the coaching staff have to be comfortable with Gudiño being able to play with his feet and the distribution and coming up and being that sweeper keeper and all of those things. And if it's still a learning process for him where Rocco Rios Novo is more comfortable in that role, yes, you're basically looking at this as Rocco coming into the season was something along the lines of your fourth string keeper, because you have Brad, you had Bobby Shuttleworth, you had Dylan Castanera. Both Brad and Dylan are out with Achilles injuries, and then Rocco seemed to take the initiative and was more comfortable in the system with what Gonzalo Pineda wants to do in that position than Bobby Shuttleworth was. And that's why Rocco has started 15 matches. And so I think that it's probably just getting Godinho comfortable with what he can do when it comes to distribution. And until that, you don't want to bring in someone who's against type with everyone in front of you that's used to doing it a certain way. You don't want to bring in that's the different element until they're comfortable with doing what you want them to do.
Yeah, today I'm totally with you. Goalkeeping right now is about more than just stopping shots and closing down on attackers, and that's part of the game, especially for a team like Atlanta that comes out of the back the way they do.
All right, so we're going to close the show, and you know what that means is that I get to run a fancy billboard, and I'm going to hit a button. Nico, as always, thanks for hanging out with us. We'll catch up with you next week.
Yes, sir. Let's do it again.